There's Vic. Hey, Vic. Nice to see you back
Oops, where am
home.
I? Hey, I know. Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. And you know what? I realized I totally crashed that last call.
No, no. Wait, were you not supposed to be there?
I don't think I signed up for it. And then I got really confused. I saw like there was this one and then that one. And then I was like, oh,
Many. There were too
because
many this
it's
week.
Wednesday at noon. Yes. And I was like, oh, let me just hop on and just see. So,
Oh, no worries
but
about it.
thanks for letting me sit in on that. Yeah, I was running errands and then I missed like the end of it because I was on the call with a store, trying to
Hello,
um
Katie.
figure stuff out.
Yeah, that's Vic is in Virginia. Katie, where are you growing from?
I'm in Colorado.
Oh, welcome, welcome. Yeah, we have a few Colorados, one Canada on the West Coast, and one one registered from Sydney, but I don't know if this is, I think this is like their morning. So we'll see who comes in. Welcome. We should start because Dave has to run. So I will screen share. Welcome to Summer Garden Planning, knowing what to plant. Let me make sure that I'm recording here. Yes. Knowing what to plant this coming season. So, Katie, you told us you're from Colorado. What's your biggest struggle in the garden right now? And where in Colorado are you?
So I'm in Aurora, not far from Denver.
Uh-huh.
And my biggest struggle is actually we moved here from California a couple years ago. And in California, we did not have any kind of yard or anything. So now we have a yard and we have a garden, and we're also at higher altitude. So we're trying to figure out what to what to grow and how to grow it.
Yeah, that's always the first thing, right? The difference in altitude means like a difference in when you can actually plant the thing. Now, I'm not the I'm going to be talking about the altitude. I think Dave can answer more, but that's a great question. What have you got started so far? If you've had anything or in pots
Well,
or
last year, towards the end of the summer, we had good luck with tomatoes and peppers.
Mhm.
But we're just starting to look at what we want to do this year.
Awesome. Well, this is the place to be. And Vic, she's a GIY member, so I know her. And I know her background, but you want to share a little bit, Vic? You just muted yourself.
I'm the worst. I'm in Alexandria, Virginia, and right now my struggle is I have a rack of seedlings that need to be uppotted and also start the whole hardening off process. That's what I'm dealing with
All
now.
the what? Herding off?
Hardening off.
Oh, hardening off. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, we can do it. We can do it. It's getting hotter. It's supposed to be in the 70s today. And Andrea
Mhm.
in Texas is past this like transitional period. She's growing really well now. How's everything in your garden, Andrea?
Oh, it's great. I I've harvested 4 cucumbers, pickling cucumbers, so small,
Uh-huh.
and the we've seen 2 squash bugs, and these little, they look like ladybugs, but they're not. And so the leaves are being eaten, but we've picked those off. So hopefully I have 4 little squash coming on. Potatoes look good.
Hmm. Oh my goodness. And now you're preparing for your late summer, I bet. What would be our late summer is your normal summer. You have cucumbers and watermelons for you.
Yeah, I have 2 watermelon plants. They're doing okay. And I want to plant okra. I have tomatoes. Um, 2 of my tomato plants, after 4 days of heavy rain,
Mm.
um, bit the dust. One of them had lots of little cherry tomatoes.
Oh,
So,
no.
so that's what I'm,
That's what you're struggling with, is that you have heavy rains and so how many tomatoes do you have total right now?
plants. I have 5 volunteers that I didn't plant. I transplanted 4 of them. One was too little, it didn't make it. And I left 2 in place, but they're not in exactly best place. And then I think I have 6 left of the 2 that bit the dust. I don't know why. They just went and they never recovered.
Well, I'm glad you have backup, Andrea, because that sounds like you still have hope. You did well. You did well. Oh my gosh, I'm amazed. Well, for those of you who are watching the replay and don't know us, what got us into gardening was health reasons, environmental reasons, and spiritual reasons, some of which we explored in the webinar right before this one, which is about God and the Gardeners for those who are in GIY. And we teach in gardens in schools. And these are some Jerusalem artichokes that these kids had harvested. We actually let some grow this year in this same bed. And some potatoes are coming up. We planted some potatoes. And this is our mission and vision to teach and discover how growing holistically leads to freedom and abundance. And that's what we invite you to do today. But before I start with the program on summer garden planning, what we're going to do next, I'm going to call on my husband Dave because he has to run in about half an hour, less than half an hour, and he's going to give us some updates about his project to help us gardeners called Sage.
Sure, thanks for the lead in, Next. So, yes, I've been working on this online software to kind of manage our gardens, to kind of give us more accurate planting dates. And eventually I would like it to also enable us to visualize our gardens as well as track the history so that we can see what worked previous years and not repeat the same mistakes year after year. So I'll share what I have now, the latest updates. See if I can go. Okay. I'll log out just for people who haven't seen this recently. So when it's an online software, and all GIYers have access to the beta. So the idea is that there's 4 main areas of functionality, and that they would integrate with each other. So you have a planting calendar. This is one that's pretty straightforward, where you can create seed starting dates, transplant dates, other kind of things, activities that are in your garden. And then you can also set up a notification so that you, oops. Let's stop with the notification thing. On the live version, this is a test version because I've got a few new features enabled here, but you can set email notifications for certain events so that you have a planting calendar, and then there's going to be a journal where you can kind of track your plant history. But the part that I've been working on recently is the My Plants, which is your plant list. So I'm actually going to skip to a piece that's been here for a while. This is a crop planner tool. So you enter in your zip code here. and it has access to all the weather stations, the last 30 years of information to kind of get the average monthly temperatures. So the idea is we're trying to figure out what our planting windows are. And Nikki might explain that a little bit later, what a planting window is. But the new feature for this is that it's now integrated with the My Plants. So I'll show you like a ground cherry, say we want 2 pounds of ground cherries per week. So you can see it's a warm season crop. This gives you some information about my hours of code, which is 20176. These are the planting dates. And then if I wanted to get 2 pounds of ground cherries per week during that growing window, then I would need 10 plants. So it gives me an estimate of the kind of harvest that I would generate. So if you go to the next screen, the new part is that you can now copy that information to your My Plants area. So I have a few areas set up and I'll go to that in a minute, but I just wanted to show that you can select an area and then it will create that in the area. So My Plants is supposed to be kind of like your plant central. So it has all the information about your plant starting dates, their history, the harvest totals, etc., things like that. So I've broken it down. By default, it's kind of an area view. So you organize your garden into areas and then you put your plants underneath there. So for example, in this wonderful herb garden, there's a timeline that shows your seed. This is new as well. The size of the thing, I have to still fiddle with the appearance of it, but for all the plants that you've added here, let's say if I add a new one, beauty, I give it some dates. These are not accurate. I'm just throwing in some dates as an example. So you put in your seed starting, transplant dates. I have to reload for this. So that's still, now you can see that that'll show up on the timeline. So each area has its own timeline. And you can see that I copied ground cherry. I'm missing an icon for that, but the nice thing is you can start in the crop planner tool and then it'll generate all the dates for you automatically. And then you can populate your plants into the area. And then the other kind of cool feature that I've added is the spreadsheet view. There have been some requests to view, instead of viewing things through areas, that you can see a spreadsheet view of it. So this enables you to see all the plants. There are different areas. I'd like to get, if it's possible, I'll probably be deploying these to the beta live site in the next day or so. But I'd like to get some input about the different, I can't show every column. So whether you want to, there's probably like 20 different columns of information for each plant. So whether it makes sense to just have a certain number of columns. Also, whether you want to see the timeline in this view as well, like over to the right of when your plants should be planted. But you can change things here, like if I wanted it to be golden ugly, for example. And go back here. Where I put it. There. It's updated the information. So it just gives you a different way of changing your data and viewing your data for people who prefer seeing it in a kind of a spreadsheet view. So that's a very, very quick update. There are more things I could say about it, but yeah, as Nikki mentioned, I have a 2 o'clock, so I can't stay around too long for this session, but are there any questions about some of the new features?
Dave, it's Vivian.
Hi, Vivian.
Is there some place where we can see what the potential columns would be, or you have a database, as far as what for the spreadsheet, you're asking us to give you an input as to what we'd like to see. How would we figure out what could be put there by do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, so I could have a little like pop-up dialogue that would say, pick which columns you'd like to view in your spreadsheet. And it
Okay.
would have a list of all of them, but you'd be limited to probably selecting 5 or 6 of them at any one
Okay.
time, because otherwise it would go over to the right and you wouldn't be able to see anything.
Right, yes. So I guess what I was saying, sometimes I want to see when I need to start seeds, and sometimes I want to see when I can expect a harvest of things. So that's all. I was just okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's getting a spreadsheet to work with everything else was a bit of a challenge. So eventually I think I can get different kinds, instead of editing in a cell, getting custom, if you're editing a date, then it would be nice to have a calendar thing pop up when you're editing that date.
Mhm.
And the same thing with getting the timeline. But I think now that I've got the basic integration between the flipping back between the area view and the spreadsheet view, that I think I can add those things without too much effort.
Thank you. Looks nice.
So
Thanks.
Nikki has a lot to go through too, right? So I don't want to take away
Your
from her
time.
time.
No, and whatever you can add to whatever I'm saying, love, is great. So what to expect? We'll look at the quarter ahead. We'll finalize, hopefully in this time, your summer plant list and plot it out in a garden planner on a spreadsheet, since this is not yet live on Sage. And those of you who don't have access can use the spreadsheet. And then we'll talk about ways that we can help you. So in the next 3 months, what can you do garden-wise in April, May, and June? These are the locations of all the people who've registered for this event. And most of us are here. And this just gives me a little bit of an idea of what climates I'm working with. And as a background again on climates, we can look at where you are on the map and see what your general growing zones are. But these growing zones that are determined by what your freezing temperatures are. But these Köppen climates, these tell us how dry, or give a little bit more of a nuance. And so if you're not familiar with the Köppen climate types, just take a look at this and see in general, if you're, especially if you've moved, in your case, Katie, where you are now versus where you were before. Aside from the altitude, you're also looking at the soil. The hot summer Mediterranean is California versus cold semi-arid or hot semi-arid, or hot summer Mediterranean continental, those kinds of differentiations. And then you can look them up later on to see what that means for your plant. In general, if you're in zone 6 to 8, we start our lettuces in March, brassicas. So this is an overview first before I dial down into our specific zones. We start early summer plants, and I know some of you, such as Andrea and Vivian, are already past starting. You are now, if you haven't started, you're in the harvesting and killing the bug stage, and we are just about to start in some other places. And then now, for sure, we should be starting the hotter, those of us who are, those of you, Andrea and Vivian in particular, anything that's hotter, corn, okra, watermelons, they should be started now if you haven't yet, or direct sown at this point for you guys. But for us, we're still starting our summer crops, some of the other ones like the herbs that love are hot loving. And here we have the transplanting usually happens in May, because that's when we find, as we'll see later, that it's the most convenient. This is like the sure shot. Nothing will die if you transplant in this part, especially if you're in, yeah, even if you're in Colorado. Plant new perennials, stone fruit, palm fruit, and berries around. Now is the great time for transitioning time to a great time to put in your stone fruit, your berries, your perennials. Now's the time. So zone 6 to 8.
Then next, could I just add like two very quick tips?
Mhm.
So two pieces of advice for summer growing. Most of your high output vegetables are going to be fruiting crops. So these largely fall in the families like cucurbits and solanaceae. So cucurbits are things like melons, cucumbers, watermelon, winter squash, pumpkin, and solanaceae include tomato, peppers, eggplant. So the summer is where, you know, fruiting crops produce, in general, can produce your largest crops of the year. I mean, sometimes you can get a lot from root crops, but typically what people do during the summer is they will plant too many of the fruiting crops in a small space and not enough of the support crops. So support crops are things like legumes, like bush beans, soybeans, peanuts. They can also be herbs like basil or other flowers that attract pollinators like marigolds or nasturtium. So typically what people will do is they plant 10 tomato plants in a small raised bed and, you know, like 3 basil plants. And it should be flipped. It should be tomatoes are fruiting, so they will continue to grow and produce more and more harvest as they get bigger. So you only need 1 or 2 in a typical 4x4 raised bed. And you need a lot more of the support crops. So you need a lot more of the bush beans and the basil, you know, like think 20, 30, 40 of those type of plants because they take up much smaller space. So that was my 2 cents.
Thank you, especially if you trellis them and they're pole beans. So zones 4 to 6, we're still getting ready to transplant these out. We're already transplanting. We're still starting tomatoes, melons, and the hot summer crops. And if you're not familiar with the warm weather crops versus the cool weather crops, there is a crop PDF that was in the link in the email that I sent, and that'll explain which ones are which. And then we are in the months to come around May, June, you can still be transplanting your berries, your stone fruit, and your palm fruit, your trees and your perennials.
So if you're in I'll be faster with this comment. If you're in a cool climate, you don't want to try to do things that you can't really do in your climate. So if you, I would advise if you want to grow peppers or some kind of heat-loving plant, that you look for what they call early varieties of those plants, and you can really max out on your cool weather crops. So some things that you can't grow in hotter climates, you can grow for an extended period of time. The classic thing are brassicas. So things like cauliflower, broccoli, you can do really well in the north growing those things in the summer, where those things are already starting to bolt in our climate.
And finally, the hottest climates. Right now, you should be finishing your harvest of spring crops and maybe taking them out if they are drawing in a lot of the white flies or pests, if the brassicas is what I'm thinking of. And then you're starting, if not already harvesting, in the case of Andrea, your tomatoes, your melons, your cucumbers rather, and then your melons are just coming along. Definitely transplant out in the next month your hot summer crops and harvest your early summer plants. Now, just be also mindful of this year. What can you, as the climate warms, what can you be growing this year that's new, that you haven't tried before, even if you just introduce one more thing to test out and see if your garden can hack this particular plant that seems to tolerate the heat more and for a longer period of time. Because the goal, if there is a theme to this garden planning session, it really is how can we extend the harvest the most? That's the goal for everything that is running around, are planning it in the calendar, to are looking at the specific climates and suggesting things like cloches for the cold north or shade cloth for the hotter climates. And if you do find you need shade cloth because it is getting super hot right away this coming May, remember to put a note to get those stakes out there and to buy the shade cloth already, for that reason. So now let's go and dive into your plant list. What are you going to grow for the summer? This is the way that I like to, this is the planting list that I hope that we can all sort of fill in at the end of the session. Knowing when to sow, to transplant, and to harvest. Also recognizing if we are in the north that we can maximize more, we're trying to harvest more, we're maximizing more of those cool weather crops. And if we're in the south or in the warm weather climates, we're maximizing our warm weather crops. So we should become experts this year in what these crops are that will grow the most for us and what else they could be that would feed our family. And if you want to dive deeper into this one of knowing exactly what are the warm weather crops versus the cool weather crops, there's a module in the GIY core course called Choosing Your Plants, and that'll help you also consider some combinations. Tomorrow, we have another webinar, which you cannot do without knowing this. It's called the Build a Guild. So it assumes that you kind of know what crops grow in what climates, and what their layers are. And this is introduced in this module. So tomorrow, I know some of the GIY members will be doing a Build a Guild workshop where we're going to be building these combinations of plants in before we plant them out for this year. So back to what we're doing. So check your crop guide for your crop's germination temperature range. So where is that located? Here. It's when it says min to max, it means that beans can germinate at 55, but their optimal or their maximum germination temperature range is 90, and their optimal germination time is in the middle. So they can germinate at 55 degrees, but it might take 2 weeks. They can germinate, celery can germinate at 60, but it might take, a longer time. Same thing with tomatoes. So the warmer it is, that's why we use the heat mats, the better it is for that germination time to be shortened. And then the longer they are in the garden, the quicker we can get them out there from the seed starts. There is a updated spreadsheet that I'll be toggling back and forth. So I'll be stop sharing and sharing another screen in a bit, where, and if you can go to this link, bit.ly/copy-plant-list. Dave, if you're still online, if you don't mind popping this link for me in the chat for people to easily get this new spreadsheet, the production planner. Not everything there is for this webinar. It's like our complete planning spreadsheets that I currently use, but it might be helpful for you to see the portion that is where you list out your summer crops. So think summer crops. What are your summer crops? They are not these crops, carrots, lettuce, and cabbage. Those are not your summer crops. Nevertheless, if you have little seedlings that are lettuces and you're like they're gonna die, try to see if you can grow them indoors. If you have any still seedlings that are not super hot yet, um, and that are not appropriate for your climate outside, and they're in still seedling form, think where is the microclimate? Where can I sneak them in? Is it still possible to keep them alive? And then let's focus on that list of what are you growing for the summer. So list your plants on your spreadsheet, and this is where I'm going to stop share and find that new spreadsheet that I was mentioning. Okay, and so here you have several tabs, and I'll ask you to look at the seasonal plant list. So it's already populated with stuff that we're growing. Don't mind the colors yet. I'll share what that is about later. But just list even just three seeds or three plants, or just look through this and give yourself some time to look at this spring what is already growing and list those. And then what would I like to grow? Or actually, this summer, just focus on the summer. What would I like to grow this summer? Because we're done with the spring, right? If there's something growing, we'll list that later. But what would you like to grow this summer? And that's what you would fill this spreadsheet with. Now, if you don't have a spreadsheet, don't want to do it, just get a piece of paper beside you and just make that list now. I'll go back to, and I'll here. Okay, I'll set my timer for 1 minute and give you a 1 minute to write or type your plant list. And you can send questions that you have. All right. That's the end of our timer. And thank you for your questions. Vivian, can you remind me what it means for beans to be short day? Yes. So short day plants are days that flower when the days are short. Long day plants are plants that flower when the days are long. So short day plants, beans, they will start, we some plants we want them to flower because that's we eat their fruit. So beans is an example. So when you see the beans flowering, that's a good sign because you want that to happen. So you want it to get it to that flowering stage as soon as possible. You want it warm for that bean plant where it is. So microclimates that are warm. This is for most beans, not fava beans are more cool weather. Yeah, the same thing. So certain things we don't want to flower. For instance, onions are, I think there are long day and short day onions. So if you find you have a variety of onions that are long day, they will flower. Oh, sorry. Yes. Short days means more cool weather, short days. Yes, that's when they flower. So beans, they like it to be cooler, even though they are most of them are summer summer crop. So they don't want it to be frying, and that somehow stops them from flowering. But then things like our brassicas, our leafy greens, like our mustard greens now are all flowering, and they are also short day flower. So they flower, I think, more from the heat. But onions, they flower that are long day, they flower when it's cooler. So you have cool weather onions. Yeah, they flower when they're cooler, and so you don't want that to happen. And then there are long day onions, short day onions that flower when it's cooler, and long day onions that flower when it's summer. So I'm sorry, I feel like I just confused you, but it's whatever day it is, that's when it flowers. I hope that helps. And then summer plant list: berries, cucumbers, watermelon, herbs. Wow, Vic, you already have your list. That's amazing. So remember that we are looking at now, the next thing we want to look at is how many days to harvest does my plant take? How many days to harvest? So keep that in mind. So let's just take one plant, tomatoes, for now. And I see that the days to harvest for tomatoes is 70. So now we're going to go back to that planting list, bit.ly/copy-plant-list. And I'm going to switch over to that spreadsheet and show you around. So now that we're done, I'm assuming you can erase all of that I've written here so that it reflects what you guys want. But I'm just going to look at tomatoes for now. So I will look at tomatoes, and I'm going to look at their days to harvest based on that planting workbook. So the days to harvest was 70. And then I'm going to look at remember the germination of tomatoes is 55 to 70, right? Something of that sort. So the next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Google, and I'm going to plot out, let me see here, google.com, and I'm going to plot out what are my average monthly temperatures in my zip code? What are the average monthly temperatures in my zip code? And it'll show me an overview of these temperatures, and it'll also show me a graph. And that helps me kind of visualize where in the germination temperature range of tomatoes, 55 to 70, do I currently fall? So this is where in my climate, it's a little transitional. It's a little scary to put tomatoes out yet. Now, if you're doing okras and you're in Texas and your okras have like a higher germination temperature, it's just a matter of when is it convenient for you to put the okra out, or how long do you want okras? Is it easier to buy the seedlings at this point, or do you want to direct sow your okra because you have a special variety to plant? Then you could look at the same, then it doesn't matter when you're in this time of the year and you're also growing the same thing, or when your temperatures are higher and you're trying to grow something that is the same climate, reflects the temperatures that you currently have outside. So let's say tomatoes in this area, 45 to 55. So we are going in to that 55 range, but not yet. And this, remind you, is averages of the last 30 years, the weather averages. Sage, the app, is also based on the national, the NOAA weather averages of the last 30 years. So it does not reflect, current trends towards warming that we see, because it's a very average kind of plot. So what you can do if you want to maximize your garden harvest is you can kind of fudge it a bit and put some out already, like 2 weeks before your frost date, to test the waters and see if they'll take. You might not need to try, and you'll take off some, you might not transfer everything. You can transplant half of your tomatoes, but they're out there and you're not missing that window of growing. So that's the next part. Just want to make sure that, okay, so we look at our monthly, and then we're going to match the temperature data with the germination temperature. How do we do this here? Match the temperature data with the germination temperature. When can I transplant my tomatoes? and when do I harvest them? So plus 70. So let's say on the calendar, we're transplanting them. And now I'm going to go back here. Let's say, and now let's go here to the planting calendar. Let's say I'm transplanting them in May, like April now, mid-April. These are my tomatoes. They will be in ground for 70 days. So this is 15, 30, 45, 60, 75. And I can expect to harvest them July or maybe even earlier than that. And I want, and this is me being very positive, that nothing's going to happen to my tomato or it'll not get sick and die. And I want the longest possible time for it to be alive in the garden for me to harvest from it. And so I look back at the average monthly temperature here, and I'll see that it doesn't go down to 55 really. I'm still keeping the germination temperature in my mind till maybe October. So September, I'm being optimistic, I can still harvest from that one tomato plant. So that is how we plot using this spreadsheet. That's how we plot one plant at a time. So I chose tomatoes, I'm going to do cucumbers, and I'll do beans next. And so for this next part, I'll give us 3 minutes. Is that what I'm doing? 3 minutes to plot your plant's progress on the calendar. Drop any questions in the chat for this calendar link that I sent you all, the bit.ly/copy-plant-list. And the tab is planting calendar. So 3 minutes, let me take that time. And start. All right. Who here got got a plot going of things that they were growing? So I'm doing the last one for beans, 60 days to harvest, and it's good as long as the temperatures are between 60 and 90, which is what happens until September. So I don't know if I explained it well enough, but anything in gray is seed starting. Anything in blue is when the plant is in the ground, and anything in green is when you're harvesting it. So given those three things, knowing what your average monthly temperatures are, knowing what the temperature ranges of the plant you want to grow is. So here, this is when it's good, it'll die below or above these temperature ranges, and knowing when the days to harvest are will give you a rough idea of when you should be planting it as a seed and when you should be transplanting it outdoors if you've started them in seed trays, and when you should expect a harvest. So everything here is done automatically in Sage currently. So you can use Sage to do this plotting for you. And that it runs with the, that goes with the national weather averages. Did anyone have any questions before I proceed? No? All right. I hope I didn't lose anybody. Everyone's quiet. I know it's a lot to take in. And I only plotted three crops. So you guys can do more after this for sure. Oops. Let me see if I'm sharing the right screen here. Do you all see? I'm going back to my presentation. Do y'all see my presentation? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so now we're done with that. Share your three crops with us. So Vic, you already did it in the chat, and tell us when you would sow and here's the added. Show us when you would sow and transplant them. Example, tomatoes, transplant now. Oh, okay. Sorry. Andrea said that the PDF. Oh, okay. Didn't tell her. So there was another one sent. Let me add that. And if anybody actually, and it was also attached in another one sent in the email. Andrea. So let me go back then to that warm temperature thing so that you can see it. If anybody still needs to find this one. So here are some of them, and okra is not on here. So you'd have to Google okra's germination temp. But nevertheless, for you probably you could do it now. If this might be helpful for anybody who didn't get the crop guide with the correction. Anything else? Lima beans, okra, and squash. Awesome. And are you direct sowing them in your garden, Andrea, or just or seed starting them? And you can unmute if that's
I
easier.
was trying. I'll probably direct sow.
Yeah, direct sow them for sure. And if you have some time, you can do both and have backup. But if you direct sow them now, and how many, so lima beans and squash, we have beans in general, 60 days to harvest. Oh, lima beans, 84 days to harvest. Lima beans, so that would be like 3 months, right? Little less than 3 months before you have a harvest. So now it's April for you. May, June, July. So around July, you'll be harvesting your lima beans. If you direct sow them now. Corn, Vic, direct sow in May and harvest in August. Everything else can be transplanted or sown March or April in your zone. Yes. Oh, wonderful. Okay, people are working. And anybody else lost or hasn't have any questions, or I hope everyone's following along. Okay, so that is, I've started herbs indoor. Beginner question. Yes. Does direct sow mean in the outside garden? Yes. And that's totally, I add that question too. Direct sow means you sow it outdoors directly. So why do we suggest that you grow it in 10, 20 trays still? And not just direct sow. One is, if we don't have that climate where you can direct sow it right away, it's good to have that skill. Second is, if you want a longer period of harvesting that crop, if you direct sow peas, it'll germinate but very late. But if you put the peas in a seedling and you put them out as soon as the peas can hack it, like now, yeah. So farmers, they direct sow like February, March here in Virginia. But then if you have the seedlings and you sow them in March, you get an earlier crop of those seedlings. So that's one reason why we have the seedlings in trays. Another reason is we get a higher germination rate in trays, and you can see you have backup. So if there are any blank spaces or a bug ate one or something ate one, one pea has disappeared, then you can plug in another one from your seed tray. So that's another reason, like insurance. But great question. And direct sow does mean outside in your garden. I've started herbs indoors and will transplant in May. Yes. I feel like I understand the process, but I would definitely need some time to figure out your own data. Yes. And don't worry, Katie. It's like you can always watch this recording and slow it down and pause a little longer in each of those steps. Those are we have given this quite a number of times, and so sometimes we will add, oops, I'm sharing my desktop on my screen. We will add more details, and I feel like I just wanted to keep it simple now and just do those two things, and I'll come back to my presentation here, which is, let's figure out your plant list, and then let's plot a few on the calendar that you can get done now, and then you can go and do it after this training, the rest of the crops that you decide you want to grow. So each calendar is unique. The nice thing about Sage is that you can plug in your zip code and then it creates it for you, and it'll give you a reminder email or reminder text. And sometimes that can be annoying because I think those reminders might not be able to turn them off right now, but it does give you that reminder. And then but knowing it this way too, the analog way, or the way that you would have to know each variety, sometimes each variety is different too. It makes you more powerful, to know this stuff, makes you more flexible as a gardener. Your climate is different from ours, and you have more time or garden experience than we do. Then you would know, well, they didn't really come up until this date, not whatever Nikki said in that crop guide. So different varieties have different times and dates as well. So was this helpful to anybody? Just those two steps to get you going, to get you growing? Yeah. I just wanted a space where you guys could be like held accountable to doing this stuff. Oh, wonderful, Brenna, you have like motivating. Wonderful. Okay, great. So for those of you who are new to this process of planning, this is the more technical stuff that we're talking about here in gardening. It's great. We don't have these many workshops in a week, but this week we did because there was Easter, and then I'm flying out to Mother Earth News in Kansas next week. But this week we have a workshop today on this garden planning thing, but it was preceded by a workshop to help us all look at the bigger picture of why are we growing these things in the first place. This is the how, and we're very good in like me and Dave, we love teaching the how, but we forget to remind ourselves why we're doing this and what is driving all this technicality about knowing when the plants grow and such and such. And so we hope you revisit that, not in this webinar now, but we revisit that with your own, as you're doing this and it seems tedious, that those reasons come up to play and motivate you to keep at it and keep experimenting. We have a garden program. If you're interested and you're ready to go all out, go all in, and you want your harvest now, it's called GIY program. And it solves the problem of not knowing how to become self-sufficient or where to start, solves the problem of garden project overwhelm. And I believe this is something submitted by a GIY gardener. And GIY members who are here, we are asking you to do this in the design module and again every year. So save the one that you did last year, so that you can just use it as a template. We are going deep into this tomorrow in the Build a Guild. So I'm looking forward to seeing some of you again for that one. And then we also have a Grow It Yourself community, which does not have the course or the one-on-one support, but it does have events like these and the one tomorrow to help you learn from gardeners all around the States and Canada and Europe, how to grow their food, what they do, what their hacks are for bugs and pests. And we have a resident entomologist who can identify any bugs and suggest, well, she doesn't suggest solutions is the only thing, but she can identify your bugs. So cucumber, squash bugs, Andrea, we're gonna have to talk about that on your check-in. And then finally, what Dave was showing, Sage is going to launch on Kickstarter August 12, 2023. I've set the date already. We hope you can support this Kickstarter project. Those of you who have it, Sage on beta, any of your feedback, Dave welcomes it, and we're trying to incorporate it as we go. If you have a planning system that you're already using that you love and you want to see how Dave can digitize it, just suggest, send your suggestions to him. He's all ears at this point, because we're trying to get that all set for August, and then keep in touch with through these means. Our philosophy is that all the world's problems can be solved in the garden, and ecological gardening is a fundamental way to discover God, and growing holistically leads to true freedom and abundance. So what is your main takeaway from this training, everybody who's been here? I have some quiet ones like Pam. What is one thing that you're going to do and that I can hold you accountable to in the next few weeks? And I'm gonna find my pen here so I can write them down. Thanks, Nisi. All right, Andrea said she's going to plant okra. Direxo. Awesome. Brenna, plan out more supporter crops. Oh my goodness, yes. And Brenna, if you want to come to tomorrow and just sit in and see how we talk about guilds, I know it's another time frame, or you can watch we'll have the replay up at the end of the week for the Build a Guild.
Okay, I'll probably do the replay.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, plan out more supporter crops. Okay, that's Brenna. And then Vic, I need to sort my seeds by sow time and place. Yeah, sow time and place. Oh, when to sow. Okay, so you have your seeds. Go ahead, unmute yourself if you want to.
Yeah, like when to sow them and whether I need to direct or indoor. And then like obviously like we're in the garden, right?
Yes.
But oh my goodness, so many different
one box
times.
for the front garden, and then the date, and then another box for like the back garden. Okay. That's a great aha, just to know that you need to do that. It's like, okay, my goal is to plant something in our summer garden that we can eat. Yes, Nisi. That's wonderful. Okay, I'll ask for your plant list in a week, because you guys need to grow. you need to grow now. So, and I do have some, if you ever are here in this area and you see tomato seedlings, I do have them. But we didn't bring them last week. We brought cake instead to the church. So you can have tomato seedlings from us if you can pop by our house. Katie Donovan, you too. Okay, Katie, I will touch base with you. My pencil just broke. Next week. And Pam, you've been quiet. I don't know if you can unmute or write something. Plant list. Wonderful. I think everybody has a homework. Great. So, well, with that, we end at 2:31, at least my time. And I wish you all a great beginning to your summer garden. And we'll see you all next time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.